Hey everybody, welcome back to the Headway Podcast. I'm Shane, your host, and with me is co-host Rachel.
Hey everyone, last time we discussed the topic of returning to work. Today we are discussing a topic that can also be quite close to home for many of our clients, returning to driving.
Along with returning to work, returning to driving is one of the biggest challenges that individuals with a brain injury may face. And again, it may not apply to everyone, but for those who are worried about facing the daunting task of returning to driving, we have three amazing guests joining us today to walk us through their journeys of getting back behind the wheel.
Many of the skills required for driving, such as concentration, perception and coordination, can all be impacted as a result of a brain injury. Another symptom which may occur following a brain injury is epilepsy and seizures. This can be a big contributing factor into an individual's ability to return to driving.
Individuals who have experienced a brain injury should always consult with their doctors before returning to driving. There are also services available to those wishing to get back behind the wheel. Services such as driving assessments through the NRH and Douris. For information about the services that are available, we encourage our listeners to contact Headway.
Today we are joined by three incredible guests who are going to discuss their journeys to return into driving. Let's meet them.
Hiya, so I am Fiona. I had a stroke back in 2019, so that was 4.5 years ago. I was in hospital for 10 days and then was discharged home and eventually got into the NRH and then got support as an outpatient for the NRH, and then I found the Irish Heart Foundation, and then from there I found Headway and got support from them as well.
Hi, I'm Hazel. 2018, I collapsed the side of the road and took a bad bang to my head and sustained extradural hematoma. I have been with Headway since, but I've been kind of re-engaging more in the last number of months. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Linda, and I had a brain hemorrhage over 2 years ago. After a year, I was given the advice to contact Headway, and I did that, and I was hooked up with my caseworker and the guys, and I've never looked back since.
Now that we have met our three incredible guests for today, let's hear from them about their journeys to returning to driving after their brain injuries.
Our first guest today is Fiona.
Yeah, so initially one of the symptoms I had with my stroke is I had seizures. So because I had a seizure, I wasn't allowed to drive for the first year. Some people after their stroke aren't allowed to drive for 3 months or 6 months depending on the severity. And also you need to be mindful if you're from Northern Ireland, their regulations are slightly different. But obviously going to a consultant, your consultant should be able to tell you when and if you're able to go back to driving. So I knew I had to wait for a full year after my seizure. And then I had to talk to my consultant or my GP, and they thought that I was okay to drive, but they said I had to go for an assessment. So my occupational therapist arranged for an assessment with the Irish Wheelchair Association. So I went to the NRH and I can't remember your man's name, I met him there anyway, he was lovely. And we had a bit of a chat beforehand, and he just basically said I was just going to be sitting in the car, having a little drive around. It wasn't a test. He wasn't going to be telling me you're doing this wrong or doing a 3-point turn or anything like that. He said we're just going to get into the car and have a little drive and see how I could cope. And he explained beforehand that there was going to be 3 outcomes. I would get my license back there and then. I would obviously have to go through just the process of getting it back fully, but he'd sign me off for my license there and then. Or he would say that I would need a few lessons and then I could get the assessment done again, or that he would recommend that I wasn't going to be able to drive for the foreseeable future, or maybe if ever again. And then he did also ask if I needed adaptions, because he had, I think, 2 different cars, but I didn't need any adaptions done. So I hopped in the car and we went around the car park a couple of times, and then when he was happy and confident that I knew what I was doing, we went out onto the main road and just drove around the main road for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and he was allowing me to drive in silence, and then he would kind of ask me a question just to be able to see how much I was able to cope with driving, and like if there was someone crossing the road or if there was a bus stopping in front of me, that I was a safe driver. So then everything went fine. I went back and he filled in the form and he said I was able to get back driving straight away. So I just then had to get that form filled in and go back to my GP, and my GP signed me off, and then I went back to my insurance company, and my insurance company, I obviously hadn't been driving for the year, so they thankfully had refunded me the insurance in the previous year, and I declared my car off-road. So I got my tax back for that. And then once I went back, I rang my insurance company again, and I was afraid they were going to hike my insurance up a good bit, but they actually didn't. I don't think they were allowed to, actually. So once I had all the clearance from everybody, it was grand. I was able to get back. I didn't drive that much initially because I was afraid. I knew it was going to take it out of me, as in driving can be very tiring. So a lot of it was just, I'm going to drive to the shop, or I'm going to drive to wherever, like short journeys. Or if I was going on a long journey, I would have someone with me, and they take over halfway just to kind of build up the stamina again. But now I'm back driving full time and driving here, there and everywhere, which is great.
Our next guest today is Linda.
One of the things that I found first was funny enough, I had a lot of questions in my confidence with a lot of things, but didn't have with driving. And maybe I should have, because if I was to collect my daughter, I would drive right past her, and then I'd say, well, why am I here? And then the phone would ring, and my daughter would say, you drove right past us. So my concentration wasn't there. So my reason for being in the car wasn't solid. And even now, I can go out to the driveway and turn right instead of turning left. And even in the height of the petrol prices, I was using way more petrol than I should have been using, because I'd have to reroute around where I should have gone. So like I could talk about a load of examples of those kind of things. But now how I cope with it is that when I sit into the car, I will put on sat nav so I know where I'm going. But I'll take a minute. I try to take a minute just to reroute myself, to say, where am I going and what's the best route, because I have to remind myself. And then if I need to do something like stop on the way, I'll put all the evidence, like letters, I put them almost on the dashboard beside me. Or if I have to return something, I have it on the seat beside me in the car. So it's all of those things. So if I was doing a journey, I have a box or a big bag. I'd leave it at the end of the stairs. Anything I need to bring down to my parents' house, I'll put it into that box, and I'll just, because I won't remember them on the morning. So I'm pretty organised now, or else I leave something in the boot of the car. So I go and I won't be without my purpose for going there. So I would plan. So plan the route, and even from the minute you switch on the key, remind yourself, where am I going and who am I going? And if you have pit stops to do on the way, put triggers there just to remind yourself. And even if I had to go to a shopping centre now, I keep a note on my phone as to, I need to go to the chemist, I need to go to, I need to get socks, I need to get, something else and something else. Because when I'm there, I could get one thing and actually forget that I need another, maybe 5 or 6 things to do it as well. But anyway, the only person that's it's the cost of petrol, really, and the amount of petrol that I've wasted just by not being planning. I still don't get it right, but I do find planning in advance, and particularly putting things into the car even the night before, helps.
I think that's really interesting, because I got my license when I was full license when I was 17. So for me to not be able to drive for a full year, that was a massive impact on me. And I was really lucky in that I was able to get the free travel pass. So that was really helpful, obviously, with paying for noses or paying for the bus or paying for whatever. I don't have to pay for that. But that was one thing. Whenever I was learning to drive, my dad would bring me wherever in Dublin or wherever, and he'd just sit back in the passenger seat and be like, okay, bring me home. I'm like, sorry? And he's like, bring me home. He's like, just drive around until you find somewhere that you know, and then work it in your head how to get home from there. So I've always been able to do that.
Yeah.
And then getting into the car after I had my stroke, and I wouldn't be able to map my route. And it took me a good while to relearn how to map my route. And like you, I was using Google Maps or whatever, but I didn't want to rely on it. And it was actually only recently I was going somewhere, and I've always been able to visualize in my head how to get somewhere. And it was only 2 or 3 weeks ago that I was able to do it straight off. That I was like, oh my God, I've managed to come so far that I could do it straight away. I didn't have to stop and think, because sometimes you kind of have to pull over and think, because obviously if you're driving, you're concentrating on what's happening. And I also found it really interesting that when I started back driving, sitting at traffic lights, looking around you, everyone's on their phone. And
Yeah.
like, oh my God. I was like, how can they be on their phone? They're supposed to be driving.
Yeah.
That it was, I had to go relearn how to, what's the word? You had to purposely do it. And now it's back into automatic mode.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it was really purposefully putting into first gear, putting into second gear, just like when you're learning to drive initially.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of back in, and like I know where I'm going to, so I don't have to really think of the route that much anymore.
Yeah.
But it's really like when I went back to driving initially, it was like as if I was a learner driver again. It was mad.
Yeah, I am as well. Mine would have been very similar to what Fiona was talking in terms of I wasn't driving for about a year and a half after the injury itself. And then finally, when I did start going back, my dad taught me how to drive like that. I had my license at 17. So it was like going back 2 decades, basically, with my dad sitting behind again with me and been like, now, put it into first, put it into second. And we went through the whole things. It did kind of come back that time. But unfortunately, 6 weeks later, I had a seizure.
Oh, no.
So I was back off again. And I think the second time round is the one that actually made a massive difference. The first time round, I was pure just gung-ho on getting back behind the wheel. That was the main thing. It was the only thing really for me. And so for 6 weeks later to have the seizure after waiting for so long and knowing, okay, that's all going to have to happen again now. It's going to be another year. And then unfortunately there were subsequent seizures as well. So it's
a year every single
time.
time.
It went, so it kind of just carried on, continuously until it was, I think it was about June last year when I could get back behind the wheel again. And that time, I remember my dad saying, just take me out now. And he was like, yeah, no worries. And I was like, just to a really big empty car park, just with nobody in it at all. And so we went up to Marks and Spencer's at Liffey Valley, and thank God, because it was like sitting, when everyone used to say like, oh, it'd be just like riding a bicycle, just like this. And it's not, no. Now, it has kind of like what you're saying there though, Fiona, it's like it was in a filing cabinet somewhere up there, and I just had to try and figure out how to unlock it. Yeah. But like when he said gently go, I was like what you think of as a first time behind a wheel person, like, but it has come back since then, like, but it was completely different. I suppose it's just one of them things of you kind of just think it's going to come back. And it first time around I did, and it was okay until the fact that I had the seizure. And the second time I was so nervous, just so nervous. And I kind of still am nervous from the point of view of the fact that it can be taken from me again. And like, touch wood, it never will, but for me anyways, was I just found it really difficult to sit behind the wheel to go, okay, this isn't that easy anymore. Like, 'cause I used to do an awful lot of driving for work as well, and I, like little things like changing gear, and then people will immediately be like, oh, well, you just get an automatic, and you're like, yeah, but I can't, because A, I can't afford one, and B, I shouldn't need one.
I don't like driving automatic cars.
Yeah, but anyway, it all has come back, but it is one of them things that I do often worry about, is the fact that it could still be taken from me as well.
Because it's linked to your independence.
Yeah, it's massive. It's fairly monumental for me in my recovery in terms of the difference that it's made, I suppose, just with regards to attending things. Like, I go to meditation on a Monday evening now, class, which I went to a couple of times, but it took 3.5 hours out of my day to go to it for like an hour of meditating, to then sit back onto a bus to get onto another bus and then go for a walk in the rain in the dark. So I just had stopped doing that. But they're kind of like-minded people as well that I spend time with, and I enjoy the time I spend with them.
Yeah.
So that's why I was making all the effort to get there. But then really I was just undoing everything. So little things like that just give me a lift at the start of the week.
Yeah.
Just that is 20 minutes up the road max, like, which was taking 3.5 hours of my day before.
And it's the fact that it's great that we can use public transport, but if the bus or whatever isn't going from your front door to where you're going, it's fine. But like you said, it takes an hour for a 20-minute journey.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways around it, I suppose. But it's, for me anyway, it is just one of them things there's no point in me fearing that it's going to be taken from me again.
Yeah.
Because you're worrying over something that might never happen again.
Yeah, exactly. But actually yesterday, it's just when you're talking about I'm really bad with directions anyway, and I always was, if I'm honest, but not
terrible.
Anything like this. Now, this is like impressively poor. But Google Maps, thank God, exists now for everyone. Because only yesterday, and it's really funny that somebody was just saying to me, like, only you, Hazel, would manage to find this as a learning experience. But yesterday I was coming home from Minnies and I was going on the back road, was closed. And so I started following the diverted traffic route. And I just kept following it as far as I was concerned. I paid no attention to where I was going other than the orange sign at some point will show up here. And I was just driving for way too long. And I knew I was way too long. Like I was going to Leixlip from Maynooth. So it shouldn't have been very difficult really. And I was like, I'm sure the next junction will tell me it'll be fine, the next junction. And I was like, Maynooth isn't even featuring anymore on any of these junctions. Never mind Leixlip. I think I need to turn around now. I need to just do it because I hadn't traced my way at all. And I was like, I have no idea where I am. I have no idea which direction where I'm trying to go is. And I left my phone at home.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a bit
Is that time you don't have your phone?
Yeah, exactly. And now in fairness, it only just came on while I was driving, so I knew I still had loads of petrol, but the petrol light came on as well. And I was like, what am I going to do? But I actually just stopped and I was like, you're going to turn around, Hazel, and you're going to go back the orange routes until you see a sign for Maynooth, and then just go on that and get back to Maynooth. And go back the other way to Leixlip. Just start again. It's fine. Yeah. So just stop. I just stopped the car at a car park. I was like, turn it around. I just sat there and was like, just breathe. This is just going to be fine. It's going to be okay. Yeah. I have no idea what I thought it was, but it was. It was fine. And I got back to Maynooth. Actually, where I was, I obviously had gone arseways at some point because I did get back to where I was still this side of Leixlip, I suppose, or the right side of Maynooth. But I got home, I saw that as an achievement. I got home still kind of all right with myself about it. Yeah. Just been like, I've been stuck on back arse roads where they're roads that I'm like, I'll just, at the next junction, I'll turn around to the next junction. And they just keep on going. And I'm like, oh my God, there's only so many turns here that I can do. But yeah, I got home and I was like, that is like somebody, I said to the person, I was like, yeah, well, I ended up in the car on country roads. I didn't even know what town or where I was near at all. My phone was gone dead, and he was just like, that is like very, very you, but also panic. No, I was like, no, I was inside, but also I knew, okay, well, there's one option here that might work, so we're gonna go with that one. But and also just kind of not beating myself up about the fact that I hadn't paid attention. I was making sure that the car was driving in a straight line and safely within them. Unfortunately, I suppose it's a learning.
And you had petrol.
I'm okay.
And to not get overwhelmed, and then that's when you can't think straight, and that's when you make mistakes. So to be able to stay calm and go, okay, this isn't working, what do I need to do to fix it? To pull over and to have a little plan in mind, and then go, okay, I can execute this plan. Like that in itself is great.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Like,
well, you're here.
I wasn't overly confident, but I did. I got home just fine. It was never later, but I was like, it's fine. But
a little adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Even if you have to go that little bit extra, you get there. We're lucky to be able to get there and not to, it takes a little bit longer and it costs a few pounds extra or, for petrol. Another thing that since the hemorrhage that I've discovered is that nighttime driving is a real challenge now. I don't like it. And also I end up, it's much harder for every mile that I do on nighttime driving. It just feels, it's much longer than it is. So try and avoid it. The evenings are getting brighter now, so that's good.
Evenings,
yeah. But it's a challenge. I'm not good at it. I'm missing things, but it takes too much out of me. Yeah. It takes too much focus out of me. So that's just something that I will limit myself to. I think Fiona, you mentioned earlier, when you learn to drive, you're conscious, and then it becomes subconscious. Whereas I was driving on the subconscious level, not the conscious level, and I could end up going down to the shops that I normally take. Whereas now I kind of reverse back and go, attend, let the experience be a conscious one and know where you're going and know what your plan is and why you're going there,
Because in nighttime driving, it's dark, so you can't see properly, but there's lights coming towards you, and then if you're in towns or cities, there's also all these cyclists who think that they're visible and they actually aren't visible, and you have to be so aware. And then even pedestrians, I know most of them are obviously on the footpath, but they're going to cross the road, or a dog might run out or something. That in the daytime you see that no problem, but and then if it's raining on top of that, it's even worse. There's so much extra. And then because you're concentrating more, you're getting tired quicker. And then because it's darker, your body is kind of probably trying to get ready for bed or whatever as well. So it's towards the end of the day because it's nighttime.
Yeah.
Everything's working against you.
it's
I think as well you kind of have to be careful. Well, I know I do anyway. If I knew that because if it was 7 o'clock in the evening and it was dark and it was raining and I was just tired and it all just seemed really, I'm just too tired to take on that journey now, so I just won't.
Fair enough, yeah.
Whereas now it's bright and sunny and you kind of haven't brought in the fact that you could be wet and you could be tired and you could be this, and your head it's bright out still, so it's grand, but technically your body is still in the same way as it would have been in many ways, like in terms of the tiredness thing.
And just because it's bright now leaving doesn't mean it's going to be bright when you get home.
and it can slot you could get fooled
because I don't that time as well in between, like dusk kind of. I find that time it's like as if my brain is just trying to go. It's just on what's going on here. Can everything just stop and stay still for like all of 5 minutes maybe till I can calculate my way like around here. I would try and steer clear of driving in dusk because it could go so dark so quickly. It's just one of them little things, I suppose.
And dusk is hard to see. It's kind of it can fool you.
Our next guest is Hazel.
So like I said before, I suppose I do have the overriding kind of just concern or anxiety that I might not be, like that something might happen that might mean that I back off the road again. But all that aside, because that may never happen, I have learned certain things, which I think probably most people would learn anyway like when they're just learning how to drive in general, when you kind of get used to your own nuances and things. But the differences between driving before injury and after injury kind of still are becoming evident to me, and I have to just work with them as they come. Tiredness is one that is a fear, really, more so than anything else, and just the impact that it can have on your driving, but also how tired you can be after driving. So I've kind of learned, I've built that up kind of gradually in terms of if something is a 2-hour journey, I will allow for an extra half hour for that journey so I can take a break and just take that break and just grab some fresh air. I don't know if I need it or not, but it's no harm on me taking it anyway. So I would do that a good bit and also be very, very aware of the fact that I could be not absent-minded. I'd never drive if I was been absent-minded, but that I might find myself getting to that stage where I'm kind of just gone onto autopilot and, like you were saying, not really purposely driving. So I have kind of started working on that a good bit. My overarching fear has always been, and it was after the second time that I was coming back, was how would I feel if I hurt somebody else as a result? And I won't manage that. I won't cope. And even getting back onto the road with my dad, it was nearly like I wanted somebody else to tell me I could. I went back into little child Hazel, like Daddy needs to say I can, but also I trust him. He taught me how to drive. So, and I knew that he was also going to be erring on the side of caution himself, as well as the consultants and everything like that. Like, but I know that when I originally, the first time around after my injury, it was about 3 months after, and at the time, unfortunately, I was told by a specialist that I could drive, and I responded to them that I can't. And they said, no, you can. I said, I definitely can't. You need to look up the guidelines. And all I wanted was to. So I was, part of me just been like, you could have just gone with it. Like, you really could have. Yeah. But at the same time, would I forgive myself ever, or would I be able to if I had a seizure driving?
Yeah, because we all have moral responsibilities as well.
Yeah. So that's, I suppose, just something that I know that unless I pay due diligence, if you will, kind of to it, I'm just putting myself into a situation where I will blame myself if anything happened. And that could even just be that I put a dent into the back of somebody's car, like, or anything. It's just the level that I will go to blame myself for something. So I would very tentatively, if I have a drive coming up, I'm very much looking at like where my stress is at, where my tiredness is at, where my concentration is at, and also everybody can just go away for the next for the next hour. I amn't going to be looking at my phone. I amn't going to be doing this and this. I won't be thinking about what it is that I'm meant to be saying or whatever. I just have to attend to the driving and just the driving. Yeah. But it's also one of the things that, like, there's not an evening now that goes by where I don't get out of the car and go, see, that was lovely. Because you can kind of go worst case scenarios all over the place. But you never actually just take a moment to just be like, no, none of that actually happened. This was just fine. Yes, it was raining. Yes, it took a bit longer, but the car's in one piece. I'm in one piece. The world is in pieces. Just turns out. But, you know, like just that type of thing of like, I am very blessed to be able to drive and for it to have been a positive experience and just leave it at that and not overthink it. Just be like, yep, that just was what it was and it's good. Because it's hugely influential in terms of your independence and what you do and what you don't do. And yeah, I suppose just such a massive, massive difference. But ultimately, there is a part of me that also has that concern about what would happen if. And the fact of the matter is that anything could happen to anybody and it might not be head injury related or not. So yeah, but I think that's probably what's really important, is just that you have everybody's go ahead to go back and drive, and then after that to just trust that and work within your own limits and keep it kind of strict within your own limits and be fair enough with them. Don't be overly liberal with yourself in terms of it, because it is exceptionally important. But then other things just since the head injury that I have noticed, I was in a bad car accident before the injury now, and after that I struggled with curbs, bizarrely. After it for quite some time, they just absolutely panicked me if they were on the right hand side. So I suppose it's kind of more just in relation to any kind of accidents or injuries that you could have, that you might become a bit susceptible to certain fears. But I would, since the head injury, I startle much easier than I would have before. And that was a concern to me returning to drive, because I was like, it's all well and good if I'm driving intently and then something happens bizarrely on the right hand side of me or something and I flash out of concentration for a second. What if the car tips, and what if that? I'm kind of more okay with it now because I actually do trust my driving. So I'm like, things are going to distract me, but I need to be able to just limit them as best I can and also be aware of the fact that there are things that I can't control on it. So loud noises that could startle me if I'm just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. If I'm in the car, they don't tend to. I kind of just have a very intense focus on where I'm going in terms of what's right in front of me. But again, I am also aware that if I'm really, really tired, as much as I might be kind of trying to ignore it, I am therefore liable to startle easier.
Okay.
So it's kind of a case of a huge amount of self-honesty, really, when it comes to sitting behind the wheel. I have to really go, are you absolutely okay to you right now? The far side of this, could you stand up and go, I literally, like, there was nothing brain injury related to that. And look, I can't minimise absolutely everything, or eliminate everything. But you kind of find your way, I think, once you're back, you just find your new groove, I suppose, when it comes to driving. I found anyway.
Yeah. You mentioned there giving yourself an extra half an hour to get that. I mean, that's, I don't do it, but every time I land where I am landing, and then the stress is, have you found the place and where you park? So the extra half an hour, and then the mandatory stopping on a long journey. I do that. I say, I'm fine, I'm not tired, but I'll stop. I'll stop. Yeah. Whereas before the head injury, I would keep going because I want the medal for getting there in one stop, but now I'll stop.
I think sometimes as well, like the Google lady might tell you to say sit in M50 traffic. Whereas for me, I know I'm better off if I'm still driving down back roads instead, but I'm having to pay attention. If I'm stuck in traffic at a standstill, that's when I possibly would just be like, oh, I'm just so tired. I can't afford to fall asleep, like, obviously, but I can't afford to then dip off into that. So I need to be more actively engaged. So I suppose there's little things that you don't even kind of really think that you do, or you don't think about it, but I would take a route which is going to require my concentration rather than a route that you could just kind of sit a bit, lay by.
So you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
Like if you're driving on the M50 or the M1 or wherever it is, and you're just, it's a boring road, so you're not going to be fully paying attention. Yeah. Versus I'm going to go to back roads and then I'll have to concentrate. Yeah. Then you know yourself. And the back roads might be a little bit longer, but you're still setting yourself up for success. Just like if you're going on a long journey.
Setting yourself up for success, I love it.
We'd like to be successful.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's like if you're going on a long journey, you're not going to stop in the garage 2 minutes from your home. Like you're going to hit your petrol or diesel beforehand.
Yeah. Yes.
So even just your hands don't stink getting into the car to go on this journey. And it's like you said, like long journeys. Sometimes for me, it's not even the day of the long journey that affects me, it's the day after. Yeah. And you kind of have to take that into account as well. Yeah. And like when you were saying earlier about being lost, being tired, and if something happened, is it the brain injury, is it not? I think we also can forget everyone has families and has jobs and has
exactly. Yeah.
Every problem or every issue isn't down to the brain injury. No. It's also down to other factors that we can sometimes automatically blame everything on the brain injury, and sometimes it's just normal life too.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, because I think I've said that in one or two of the other podcasts, actually. Yeah, and I'm often stuck in the whole, is that actually head injury?
Yeah.
Or is it just human?
Yeah. Is it a headache because I have whatever, or did I just not sleep?
Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't drink enough water or whatever.
Yeah. No, it is. That thing, I suppose, there is an element as well, though, if you are going on a long journey, like you said, it could be the following day. So what happens if you have to travel back home?
Yeah.
You know, you're literally like,
to
oh,
that,
where do I
yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
Where do I get the coffee and the air? And but it is a case of, I suppose, just continuously setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
I love that.
Because if it's a case where you're about to fall asleep at the wheel, then you've obviously gone too far, but you don't know if there's nowhere to stop, or if you're not, you can't stop somewhere safe, then you have to preempt that.
Well, because I often think, and it's just one of the, because I was living in Galway for so long, it's just one of the kind of journeys that I constantly think of when I'm thinking about driving, is like, it's going to take me 2 hours to get, say, like to the Bannistow Plaza or something. But that is 2 hours on a straight road. Only once do I need to turn off the phone and carry on there. But also you could be going somewhere the other side of Dublin at 4 o'clock on a Friday, and it's also going to take you a good hour and a half, 2 hours. And it's that type of thing of, what's the difference between a long journey where you're on a straight road, but you happen to keep on going in that straight road, or a traffic journey of 2 hours. And how do I fare in any of them situations? And I'm still working on that. Like when I went back driving first, it was like 20-minute journeys, then half an hour, then an hour, and then I did 1 to Athlone with a friend who was going to be able to take over if she needed to. She didn't, and that was brilliant. And thankfully she didn't the following day, because she was horrifically hungover. So we had to stop quite a few. Yeah, we had to stop quite a few times anyway, as was coming home. But it was just that thing of really kind of edging my way back in to it, just so I can try and take stock, I suppose, of where I'm at right now and what could work. But it does require a lot of thinking and prepping.
And it's even, is the car too warm? Is that or is it, well, not the car too cold isn't going to make you fall asleep? Or like when you said driving in rush hour traffic, other people can get very frustrated and can get, like if you're getting startled, if someone's blowing a horn at you because the light turned green at the end of a second ago, that's not helpful.
No.
So you kind of have to manage your expectations. I know you can't control other people around you, but if they're going to be not nice people and cut you off or just swinging in front of you, you're just like, okay, if that's the way you want to be because you can get home quicker 2 minutes more, then off you go and do that, and I'm still going to drive.
There's something exceptionally satisfying about somebody who beeps at somebody so much, then overtakes them, and then lands right beside them at traffic lights again, and you're like, love it. I tend to now just sit in the car going, they're just having a bad day. They're having a bad day. I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to get frustrated. I'm not going to panic. They're just having a bad day.
Okay.
And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, exactly. That's it. They too are human. But yeah.
As we wrap up this insightful discussion, let's hear a final word from each of our guests.
I think the thing is, don't underestimate the fact that it's a tiring task, and to plan for it. Don't be frustrated with yourself if you arrive somewhere you've forgotten it. You can do it another day. Plan. Make sure that this is the real message to myself, keep the car pretty tidy so I don't get distracted. And if I need something, it's there. I can get access to my water, the charger for the phone, even though, I don't look at the phone when I'm driving, obviously, but just to have everything to hand and keep the car like an office, keep it clean and keep it tidy. And then anything that I need to bring back and whatever, get them into the car before the journey. And but plan and remain focused, really, rather than relying on your old habits. So remain vigilant.
It's similar, I suppose. Just prepare for success. I love it. And just to take it handy on yourself as well, really. If you are going back to driving after a long period of driving, just be gentle with yourself about it. And you are very fortunate to be able to be back behind the wheel, and just from that point to just make the most out of it and appreciate it and prep for success.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Give yourself enough time, and as you said earlier, like if someone can't get a hold of you for 2 hours because you're driving, put your phone in the side passage in the door, whatever that's called, and then just don't look at it. There's no need for it. Like, they will cope without you. Even if, hopefully, someone hasn't died, but even if they have died, like, there's nothing you can do about it just because you're driving somewhere. And I suppose the last thing will be, there's driving instructors there for a reason. If you feel you've lost confidence in your ability, or you just want refresher lessons, go do them. Like, that's what that service they're available for. So if you just want that extra boost, if there's someone in your family not available to do it with you or whatever, that's fine. Just go and get a couple lessons, and then they'll build that confidence up again. And drive safely.
Arrive alive.
Arrive alive. Never ever drink and drive.
And that brings us to the end of today's discussion of returning to driving. We hope that today's discussion will bring comfort and hope to anyone listening today who can resonate with our guests' stories.
Yeah, absolutely, Shane. We hope that anyone out there listening to this episode will gain comfort in knowing that they're not alone in how they are feeling, and will be encouraged to reach out to the services available to them to help them on their journeys back behind the wheel. And as always, a big thank you to our amazing guests for sharing their stories and shedding light on the journey of returning to driving.
And of course, thank you to our listeners for joining us on this episode. Your support means the world to us.
If you found today's episode resonating with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We have more compelling topics lined up for future episodes.
Connect with us on social media to share your thoughts, any questions and experiences in relation to returning to driving after a brain injury.
Join us next week as we tackle another important topic of feeling low and anxious. Until then, take care, stay curious, and keep exploring the many facets of life after a brain injury here on the Headway Podcast.